Woohoo! I always start my lives now with woohoo because I am excited. Today we're going to talk about executive function and social skills and what the relationship is. And I am super excited. I'm gonna get Mike on here with us. And we should be good to go. Here we go. Hello everyone who's coming in. I don't know how anyone's feeling.
Hey, we did it. How's it going?
It's good. It's been one of those days where I feel like it's midnight right now and it's only 7 o'clock where I am. So
I was feeling the exact same way before. I was waiting for 8 p.m. to come here on the East Coast, and I was like, it feels like it's like past 8 o'clock already.
that's exactly how I'm feeling today. But I'm excited for this conversation because I've
This
been
is
looking
awesome.
forward to it all day.
Yes, me too. And this is our second live together, right?
Yes. So
Second
anyone
one,
who
yep.
hasn't seen the first one, that's like foundational information probably for what we're talking about today.
Yes, yeah. And you've been doing a lot of really good lives. So I saw one yesterday with no, not yesterday, this week. It was like you on top, and it was two girls on the bottom that looked like sisters. I think they were.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They did
yeah,
look
yeah.
like sisters.
Yeah, are they related?
They're not. Can you
Oh,
believe it?
wow. That's great. I thought they were sisters. And you guys were talking about like SLP's worth and everything. That was a very good live. And you did one with listening SLP, which was great. Good stuff.
It's been really good. I'm trying to get everything in before school and work starts again because I already know that once that starts back up, things are going to slow down immensely.
I'm in good company with all these guests that you have.
Good. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this because I feel like I always need to give a disclaimer when I have professional discussions because I always forget. I always tell everyone these discussions on lives, we are going to speak based on our own clinical experiences, our own reviews of the research, our own all of that. So we always invite others to do their own studying, do their own. I'm always like, if you want to check me on anything I say, please do, and take the information we give you, and you can decide how and if it applies to those you work with. So that
Exactly.
disclaimer aside.
Yep. Very well said. And of course, the biggest thing to remember is that we work in a field filled with unique individuals. So what we're talking about, may work with majority of people, but won't work for every single person. Every single student you meet, whether it's special needs or typically developing, whatever it is, every kid is a unique individual. There's no way to group them together, and there's no one size fits all approach in speech therapy. So, we're talking about some of our experiences and our ideas.
Exactly. And I'm all about like trial and error and testing them out. But sometimes I feel like I've even fallen into this where I go on Instagram and I'm like, it's like free professional development. And just like with any professional development, use your, maintain your responsibility for being a clinician and feel free to do your own learning in addition to what we say today. So
Exactly. And I think a lot of what we're going to talk about tonight is kind of questioning what we've been taught. So some of the things
exactly.
some of the things that we learned in grad school and some of the things that we kind of were born into this field, it's important for us to kind of question these things. And tonight we're gonna question social skills groups. We're gonna question social skills training. We're gonna question all the things that we instantly put into IEPs or 504s when we have a student with social skills challenges. And all of these social skills and focusing on eye contact and circles of communication, all of these things, it's important for us to kind of question these things and say, are we really targeting the true area of weakness?
Exactly. That's what I was about to say is we're really bringing into kind of question the theoretical construct of a social pragmatic language disorder.
There you go.
And that's not a bad thing. I just want everyone to always know I'm known to be like kind of like a critic, not in a bad way, but you should be critical of everything you take in. It doesn't have to be negative, but this is an example that if we're not critical and if we're not, continuously thinking, we might miss things like this that I personally can say from applying this to my clinical practice, it's made all the difference. So
there you go. Hey, and a lot of the professors we have in the SLP master's program, a lot of them left the field a long time ago, and they've been in academia. Schools have changed. Our kids have changed. The world of SLP is constantly changing with technology and screens and everything. Some of the things we learned are outdated. And what we now know about the brain, and we know about the connection between executive functioning and language, executive functioning and social skills, it's important for us to learn the most up-to-date information.
Exactly. Which I guess is a perfect way to dive into
Yep.
our overall question today that I think we'll end up probably answering multiple sub questions. But really, the question that we're answering today, right, is what is the relationship? Well, I guess two things. What is the relationship between executive function and social skills? And exactly what you said. What exactly are we or should we be targeting when we're targeting these, what we, view as social skills? Why do we
Exactly.
see those deficits?
So it's important for us to always remember, as speech and language therapists, executive functioning is the foundation of all learning. That's it. So executive functioning is, language acquisition, social skills acquisition, everything. In order to learn, take in information, and use it within the natural environment and learn from past experiences, we need to use our executive functioning system. And executive functioning system, a lot of people think of executive functioning still to this day as time management, and ability to read time, ability to organize your folders, organize your information, scheduling, sort of like having that executive in your head kind of thing. But it's
Right.
really evolved from that. Executive functioning is your ability to self-regulate in various environments towards various stimuli, the ability to self-motivate towards non-preferred tasks, towards social tasks, towards academic tasks, the ability to self-evaluate, which is huge in social skills, which I'm sure we'll get into, and learn from past experiences. And all of those skills, so like the big thing that I do with my specialization in ADHD and executive functioning is talk about this ADHD language connection. So in order to self-regulate, self-motivate, and self-evaluate, an individual needs to use their executive functioning system, their internal executive functioning system of internal language. So the ability to visualize to oneself with our nonverbal working memory system and speak to oneself using self-directed talk, or the brain coach for the verbal working memory system. So individuals with executive functioning, strong executive functioning, are constantly visualizing to themselves and constantly talking to themselves. And those two systems work together in harmony. But as the executive functioning system is being developed, those systems can be separated and they can be weakened. And it's very hard for these kids to visualize and talk to themselves. And these are all internal areas of weakness, internal skills that are lacking, and then it presents itself externally in a number of ways. And this is why in the past we had ADHD hyperactive, ADHD inattentiveness, all of these ridiculous names that really don't even apply today because it's all based on external, behavioral, what we see, and we're ignoring what's happening internally. So the biggest thing with social skills is we really have to look at what's happening. And a lot of the social skills groups that are happening in schools, in private practices, a lot of them are showing, and the research is showing this, a lot of them are completely ineffective for kids to learn social skills groups. Social skills. So we look at social skills in general. There's kids that present externally with social skills groups. They spend a lot of time alone. They don't make eye contact. They don't interact with peers at school, these sorts of things. And it's easy for people that work in a school to throw them into a social skills group. You have one or two SLPs, one or two adults, and huge groups of kids in one group. So it makes sense for them money-wise. It makes sense for them staffing-wise. Let's throw them into a big group and have them interact with each other. And let's hope that these kids learn social skills through osmosis and being around other kids and watching them. And there's 504s that talk about, Johnny will learn from typically developing peers. At lunch, he'll sit next to positive peer role models. He needs to be in a social group of 3 or more kids. And just from those experiences, they're going to learn social skills groups. So what we now know about social skills and kids lacking in social skills is it all comes back down to executive functioning. So instead of social skills lacking social skills, It's really social awareness and social learning challenges. These kids have social learning challenges. They are not learning social skills as intuitively as typically developing kids. Typically developing kids go through social experiences their entire life, just like other kids do, and they learn from them. They think about them, they visualize them afterwards, they evaluate, and they learn because they're able to sit back and observe and pick up on the nonverbal cues and pick up on the relationships and build those and be able to relate to other kids. So kids learn a lot like reading. When you're reading and you're visualizing, kids learn social skills by consistently being in natural environments for social skills and learning and observing and having that back and forth. And that's your executive functioning system of nonverbal and verbal working memory. So these kids that have social learning challenges are not picking up on social skills because they don't have the self-evaluation skills, the metacognitive skills to pick up on the social learning. They're delayed in their social learning because they're delayed in their executive functioning. So without fixing first that executive functioning system, it's really a total waste of time for them to be in these social skills groups. And these social skills groups are, it's a time builder. They're able to be in there and use their time and be with other kids. And a lot of these social skills groups are teaching them social skills that are really outdated. So the vast majority of students in social skills groups are boys. And the vast majority of adults that run social skills groups are females, adult females. And for females, it's kind of hard for them. They've never been a part of a male peer group before. And, teaching them to complement each other, teaching them to say, hey, what are your hobbies? Teaching them to say, hey, what did you do today? How did it make you feel? Teaching them to consistently make eye contact. That's not what typically developing boys do. Typically developing boys don't have formal greetings. Typically developing boys don't compliment each other. Typically developing boys, will, roast each other and rib each other and those sorts of things. That's almost a sign of endearment when they come up with little nicknames and they make fun of each other a little bit. And these are things that a lot of typically female social groups really don't have that much. So, having these social skills groups where it's very structured, highly structured, focus on eye contact, focus on circles of communication. How many circles of communication goals have we seen? Circles of communication, eye contact, initiating conversation. It's really not appropriate for what's going to happen in the natural environment. If these kids are taking what they're learning in these social skills groups into the natural environment, it's going to alienate them even further.
Exactly.
There you go.
Mic drop. We can end the live here.
There you go. There you have it. It's a bit of a controversial topic. It is. The vast majority of SLPs are female, of course, but it's so important that we need to reframe our idea of these social skills groups. And if we look at the research, a lot of social skills groups are not evidence-based. They're simply not. But we're treating them like they are, and we're putting them on IEPs and 504s like there are. And it starts to bother me, and I get so passionate about it, when our mistakes as clinicians trickles down into parents. So parents now, they'll see that their kid is constantly on screens, constantly on video games, constantly in their room by themselves, don't really have a lot of friends, and they'll start calling people up saying, I need social skills group. I need a social skills group. I need a social skills group. But that's really not what they need. This student needs executive functioning training. They need to be able to self-regulate and deal with the ability to be bored and not have to find instant gratification. They have to be able to motivate themselves to get to know a peer and build a relationship with them and show an interest in them. They need to be able to self-evaluate and learn from their past mistakes of social experiences. Teaching them to initiate a conversation, make eye contact, compliment, and have circles of communication, or sit there and play categories with a peer, or guess who, whatever it may be, that's not going to help them. So executive functioning is what needs to be targeted, because these social skills are literally getting them nowhere.
Totally. And I'm going to loop exactly what you said into a question that someone asked when I put up a question box, because I think it speaks to their question. They basically were asking something along the lines of, well, if like what we're doing in social skills groups isn't effective, then like how does that change my approach in therapy? And I will let you give the long answer, but I might give a short plug on, I don't know that a social skills group or getting together is bad, right? Because that's not bad. But what you're doing within that group, or the explicit instruction you're giving and the skills you're targeting, that's what makes the difference. So in case anyone's sitting here like, I'm now going to be anti-social skills group. If someone's throwing together a group of people to be social and practice these executive function skills, not bad. But I'm not going to say anything's bad. Bad is a bad,
of course,
word. But consider what you're targeting instead, maybe within this context of a social skills group.
Exactly. So a lot of the information I'm giving tonight is about some of these higher functioning students. So I'm not talking about low functioning autism and kids that need that joint attention and those sorts of things. You know, we're talking about some middle school, high school, elementary age, you know, so kids that have social pragmatic deficits and, you know, present as awkward or present as introverted, those sorts of things. And these are the typically the kids that you see in social skills groups. So the number one thing is we have to stop doing these highly structured social skills groups. Really what we have to start thinking about is more hangout groups, where it's more natural, where it's the kids hanging out and following their lead. You know, you don't have to have this huge planned setup for a social skills group of, okay, today we're going to work on circles of communication. Today we're going to work on turn taking. Today we're going to work, you know, this huge list of different social skills, social pragmatic skills that we were taught were so important for these kids. It needs to be really, it needs to mimic the natural environment. That's super duper important. So hangout groups instead of social skills groups. And we also have to think about exactly what the issue is here. So once again, we always make the mistake when we look at the external first. So we see kids that are introverted, we see kids that are by themselves, and we think, oh, they need to be in a social skills group so they can learn how to interact with peers. What the real problem is regulation, motivation, and evaluation. And it all comes back down to their internal language. So when you have a weakness in your internal language, you have difficulty with something called situational awareness. And this is also known as reading the room or reading the field. So this is something that kids really explicitly need to practice, mostly one-on-one with the SLP. And then it can be practiced in a group or a hangout group. So situational awareness is the ability to stand back and observe the situation and see what's happening and really pick up on what everybody else is doing. What does their body look like? What do their actions look like? What does their language sound like? What's the mood of the room? Like going into a library and recognizing that you have to be more quiet, or going into the cafeteria and realizing that people aren't all staring at their phones, they're interacting with each other, or going into the classroom and seeing everyone's doing work, or there's a group project going on, and kind of acclimating yourself into the group naturally with everybody else. So that is a crucial, crucial skill that requires you to, number one, stop and work and use your nonverbal working memory and observe and visualize the room. And then you kind of have to coach yourself and say, okay, I see these people doing this, I can do that as well. So teaching these students to stand back and observe and see what's happening within the area first before entering it is super important. So building internal language, building self-talk, practicing their visual imagery is going to trickle down into social experiences. And that's super important. And then once that's really mastered, you really want to start thinking about, you know, once they're starting to think about their own thinking and they're building their metacognitive skills, we want to start bringing in perspective taking. So perspective taking is a huge, huge thing that comes from the weak executive functioning system. So kids with weak executive functioning have great difficulty thinking about their own thinking, because executive functions is thinking about your thinking and learning how to think. And it's even more difficult for them to think about someone else's thinking. So kids think that, oh, nobody likes me, these people aren't nice, these people are mean, these sorts of things. But meanwhile, maybe it was some of their behaviors or something they said that alienated themselves, and they put themselves in that situation, but they can't evaluate it, and they can't think about what kinds of thoughts am I putting into that person's head. So when I do this, when I say this, what kind of thoughts am I making this person think? Am I making this person, my friend Ryan, the ADHD dude, calls it like cringy thoughts, like I'm putting cringy thoughts, or I'm putting clutch thoughts into other people's heads. So it's really, you have to start to label it and give these kids different ideas of, start to think of when I act this way, or when I say this, when I dominate a conversation, when I talk about a topic, when all I talk about is memes, when all I talk about is YouTube, and all I talk about is video games, when I'm running around the room, when I'm making fun of people, how am I making other people feel? What kind of thoughts am I putting into their head? So you have to be able to, there has to be an internal system of checks and balances. So working on the individual first before you're going to see any improvement within the social realm.
Absolutely. I feel like, let's see, I'm going to pull out like all the themes you just hit on, that in case everyone was just like, wow, that was so much great information. Take a step back and look at the why, the internal. So we listed, all of these social skills deficits that you may see, that you may have on a checklist, right? They do this, they do this, they do this. When we take a step back, we look at the why. It could be a myriad of all of those skills that you brought up, whether it's the situational awareness with reading the room, internal language, that visualization system, or all of them. Oftentimes, I think it is a bit of all of them. So figuring out exactly what that is helps you know exactly what to treat and the support you're going to give, not just look at his face. Do you see the eyebrows? Do you see this? I mean, sometimes they do need to explicitly see things like that, but don't just drill that the whole time, because that's not fixing the metacognitive part where we're evaluating and it's dynamic. It's very dynamic.
So the biggest thing with social skills, and what we're really targeting, is something called social relatedness. This is the most important thing, and it's super important for boys, because most people feel like boys don't need those intimate relationships, but it's actually crucial for young boys 18 and below to have other guy friends they feel comfortable with and safe with, not these online friends that they only play online video games with, people they meet in person and they show an effort to have a relationship with. So the ability to intimately relate to someone else. Now more than ever, you hear boys say, oh, I can't be friends with him. We have nothing in common. We have nothing in common. We have nothing in common. And it's because they don't know how to intimately relate to someone else based on their own unique set of likes and dislikes and strengths and needs. So teaching them the skills to relate to their peers, intimately relate to their peers, show an interest in them, and to intrinsically motivate themselves to get to know someone on that intimate level and spend time with them and show an effort to get to know them. That's really what we're looking for. We're not looking for them to be able to play structured board games or compliment or initiate these sorts of things. You're looking for people to build intimate relationships.
And those relationships are so crucial. I think sometimes a lot of us take for granted building those relationships and friendships. And I mean, we've got friendships, we've got professional relationships, all this different kind that require a lot of executive functioning, because the way I act with a friend is not the same I would act with my teacher, is not the same way I talk to my mom. But sometimes it's, black and white in their minds, but it's hard because it's not. And we have to change, and it's dynamic, and it's a lot of flip-flopping, and it's all the skills that you just said. And that's why we see, for example, so many issues, because it's not easy. If you and I just picked apart really what goes into it all, we'd get a headache, because a lot goes into it.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's people, parents, what I was saying before, parents have learned now to just instantly say, I need a social skills group. And just this basic exposure to peers, and a lot of these kids in social skills groups, they're doing preferred tasks all the time. They're going home, playing video games. They're around screens, but it's okay because he had his half-hour social group today. He had his hour social group today. He had that exposure to peers. Right. But we really have to say just because you have a social goal on an IEP, that's a copy and pasted goal or whatever it may be, or a 504 social, whatever, it's still not going to lead to long-term skill acquisition into the natural environment. You have to remember that the foundation of social language is the executive functioning. And for kids to learn how to regulate in social environments, be able to organize their internal language so they can have the back and forth conversation. They can start to use their perspective taking skills, their situational awareness, their social relatedness. It's super, super important for them to think of, for us as clinicians, to start to think about executive functioning first. And where is the student's executive functioning age? Where are they at now in terms of their executive functioning? We have to do lots of informal observations. We have to observe them in social environments and see what they're doing and start to talk to them about the thoughts they're putting into someone else's head, and use visual language to help them visualize what they're presenting with in these situations.
Exactly. And then use that brain coach that
There
you
you
talked
go.
about. I love the brain coach. I always laugh because I talk to myself all the time in my head and out loud. And before I really got into executive functioning and learning about that skill as a core thing, I used to laugh at myself and be like, I'm insane. But it's really what directs my life and helps me figure things out. And then now that I'm more aware, I talk to myself in my head all day, every day.
There you
And
go.
that's one of the skills that they lack so much. And I think about social situations where something happens and I'm like, that was so awkward. Did you see the way she saw, she looked at me and she probably thought this. And these are the things we think about without anyone teaching us, because we have that nonverbal working memory to hold those visual images that we just experienced. And now we're being meta and using that brain coach to be like, oh my goodness, let's look at that situation. And
Exactly.
it's hard. That's a hard skill.
Everyone knows that working memory is the foundation of executive functioning. So that's something that's starting to become pretty common knowledge, is the ability to learn from your past experiences and apply it to the present. That's executive functioning. And you think about it, if you have weak executive functioning, you're going to continually miss social learning opportunities. You're going to continually not gain information from social experiences and apply it to build upon your character skills and your social skills. So the inability to learn from past experiences and have that I work with seniors in high school that have straight A's in honors classes, AP classes, but they have very, very weak executive functioning because they have 50-page IEPs, massive 504s, parents still do a million things for them. They're in these social skills groups, but outside of the social skills groups, they're in front of screens all day, they're not carrying over any of the work, and they have such weak executive functioning. And I ask them, hey, do you ever visualize to yourself? Do you ever talk to yourself? And no, they never do. They study, they cram, they memorize information, they do great on tests, and they're going to go into a great college, but they do not have the independent skills and the social skills to succeed because it was never explicitly worked on. They were just given a handful of copy and pasted accommodations. They were thrown into a social skills group, and then one day that IEP is going to go away. One day you're going to age out of the IEP, and you're going to be expected to be independent in college and beyond, and that's where we're seeing the problem. So in our chapter chat yesterday with Terry, we were talking about how America leads the world in college dropouts. And this is exactly what's happening, is we are giving these kids massive accommodations. We are acting as their frontal lobe. We're throwing them into these ineffective social skills groups, and we're never targeting executive functioning. And as soon as they age out of that IEP and they're asked to be independent and live an independent life, everything's crumbling around them.
Exactly. I feel like the independence part. I feel like as clinicians, we prompt all day, every day, right? So we always know that the end goal is independence, but sometimes I don't know if we think, like, if we're meta about that enough. Like, what does it mean? Am I really getting that kid to independence doing what I'm doing? We have to use our executive function skills a little bit to reevaluate ourselves. Is what I'm doing really getting this kid to be independent?
Exactly. Yeah, and a lot of this is, the field that we came into. So there's many SLPs that have such massive caseload numbers, they have no choice but to group certain kids. They have no choice but to do social skills. Yes, it would be great if we could all have a reasonable caseload number and we could focus on executive functioning instead of throwing kids into a group just for the sake of time to fit everybody in one day. That's more of a structural problem. That's more of an issue with the education and staffing and financial and all those issues. But the biggest thing is we have got to start to recognize that executive functioning falls under the umbrella of speech and language pathology, period. So executive functioning is based in language. Language is executive functioning. Executive functioning is language, period. So executive functioning, like I said in the beginning, is the ability to visualize to yourself and the ability to talk to yourself. And those are the things, those are the internal skills, and then it presents itself as time management, as organization, non-preferred task initiation, and all of these things that we can see. But the ability to visualize and talk to yourself allows you to persevere through non-preferred tasks. It allows you to initiate and maintain friendships. It allows you to learn from past social experiences and apply it to the present. So if we start to focus on executive functioning instead of all of these external things that we're seeing that concern us, we're really going to see long-term skill acquisition and not kids that fall apart when they age out.
Exactly. And to put kind of a plug in for anyone who hasn't looked at executive function a lot or didn't see our first live, for example.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people do evaluations, right? This is a comment for putting, executive function and language right there hand in hand. Just because the kid has fine, expressive, and receptive language on a standardized test does not mean that kid's ready to for executive functioning. I mean, I've honestly never used a formal evaluation. I'm also school-based, and that's in their mind at my district, not my territory. I always advocate and beg to differ. But just because they score normal on my standardized evaluations, all of my informal stuff often shows that they are really struggling. Even academic skills like reading comprehension, you have to use so much executive function to maintain reading and my focus. And I mean, I could go over everything, and that's keeping them from being academically successful. That's language. They're not, using their brain coach to say, okay, this is a loud noise, but I need to be reading this. And then visualizing as they go. That's all reading comprehension, which is language, which is us. And that's just one example. That's not even
there you go.
Stuff, but
Yep.
It's us. It's us.
And there will never be a standardized test for executive functioning. And let's be honest, there are right now some standardized tests for social pragmatics, but they kind of suck. Okay, let's be honest. They're ridiculous. You can't like on the tackle, the TACL. There's a pragmatics portion, and it's all these pictures, and it's what's this person thinking? What's this person going to say next? It is ridiculous. You can have a kid that can master the social pragmatic portion of the tackle, and then you put them in a group with same age peers, and they are completely lost, and they have no idea what to do. So all of these standardized tests, because this is the system we inherited. It's all about scores. It's all about standard deviations. It's all about these numbers we can place on a kid so we can say you are eligible or you are not eligible, which is completely ridiculous. And this is why kids with ADHD, kids with executive functioning, and kids with these social challenges fall through the cracks, because all of these standardized tests that really are biased in many ways, faulty in many ways, these kids are over-tested constantly. Every single social pragmatic test to me is a joke. I use the pragmatic profile on the self, where parents check things out. I do informal observations. I have, teachers fill different things out to see what's happening in different environments. We have to start using our clinical judgment and clinical observations to really determine if this kid needs our services or not. We can't keep putting numbers and labels and scores on social and executive functioning. Those are two things that are way too abstract. You can't score your imagination. You can't score your visual imagery. You can't score your self-talk. And you can't score your social pragmatics. Sure, you can look at a picture and infer what's going to happen next or infer what someone else is thinking. That doesn't mean you're going to be able to do it in the natural environment.
Exactly. Informal, everyone. That is the end message here, is informal and use your clinical expertise. you know this probably because you've seen my stories. I don't know how many people have been here for forever, and I'm just going to be really quick about this. But part of the reason that we're doing this live is because I was talking about a case study that I had that you know about because we've talked about it extensively, about a kid who was referred to me, a kindergartner, for a social pragmatic disorder or suspected. And I mean, standardized evaluations all came out fine, but every informal thing told me this kid needs help. But you can also use your standardized testing to evaluate executive function skills, because we use a lot of executive function skills to take tests, really to do anything, but especially to take tests. So I won't go over that in detail, but if you're interested, I have a whole story highlight on how you can use your standardized evaluation, since a lot of us have to use them, to, as you're going along, informally evaluate those executive function skills and get a lot of good information.
Exactly. So what we're really talking about here is, you know, this instant idea that we have to just throw kids. So parents right now believe that, okay, my son is spending too much time alone. He doesn't have any true friendships. Let's get him in a social skills group, and let's get him in a group with as many kids as possible. So our parents are now thinking, okay, social skills and as many kids as possible. What is wrong with a kid with executive functioning challenges and social skills problems to be in a group with one other peer? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that at all. But every parent now believes social skills, large groups. And it's getting to the point now where parents are pressuring clinicians to do things because they think they're fighting for their kids, but they're just as misinformed as we are. So there is, and you can also work on social skills with just the clinician and the student. You can work on these skills to help them build situational awareness, help them to stop and read the room, from Sarah Ward's work. You can help them. There's so much incredible things that you can do. We don't need to do these huge social skills groups where we're playing board games, we're working on turn taking, all of these different things. We have to start to, yes, we can put them in natural environments. If you have the opportunity to take your speech session into a more natural environment, it's a lot easier in private practice, of course, because you can go into the community. But if you're in the school, you know, find different ways to take this student out of the speech room and interacting with other people and interacting in natural environments and getting that exposure to new people and various people and trying new things. But you know, being in a room with as many kids as possible, working on these copy and pasted social skills, all the research shows that's ineffective because it's targeting what us adults think are true social skills, but are not applicable for young boys and even young girls.
Exactly. And I'm going to put a plug in for anyone who is school-based and is like, oh, I can't go into the community. You may not, but there's actually a lot of things that you can do instead. Like, sometimes I'll invite the kids that are in, we'll call it social skills group, for lunch. And, you know, during their lunch, I talk to their teacher and say, can we change their speech therapy time to the 30 minutes that they're at lunch? And they can come have lunch with me. And that's very naturalistic, because they go to lunch every single day. So that's already an opportunity that they have every day. But then we can explicitly work on some things that maybe they need some help with. And that's easy. That's not you. You need to eat lunch as a clinician. If you're not eating lunch, this is a reason. Schedule your kids to come eat with you, then you get your lunch. But things like that, or sometimes I'll talk to my admin or teachers and they have little, I don't know, things they need done, like taking down a bulletin board or putting it up. That's a social situation. We're going to do some teamwork and so just ask around. Ask if someone needs a task done that you can take your therapy group to do, or have lunch together. It doesn't have to be that you go out into the community. It's just something natural that's not sitting at a table and looking at flashcards.
Exactly. So executive function skills and social skills are never going to be learned sitting at a table with flashcards and paper, period. And, you know, a lot of people have to do that because they're time crunched and they're burnt out, and that's just the easiest thing to do. But those skills, you're not going to see any carryover from those experiences. Remember, it's all about social relatedness. And social relatedness is a huge term that involves that perspective taking, the ability to intimately relate to somebody else and understand them and like them for their similarities and their differences. And you have to start to recognize you have to work on what is appropriate for this person's age. We were talking before about social skills groups teaching ineffective strategies that were not based on their age. It's okay for young boys to joke around with each other and make fun of each other a little bit, and not have, eye contact is not something that kids do a lot. So it's super important for them to learn how to intrinsically be motivated to have someone want to be their friend. That's the most important thing. So how can we teach them what does a friendship look like? What does a friendship feel like? What do I have to do to, what are some things that I can do? What are some things that I can say? What can I look like to put positive thoughts in someone else's head to make them interested in me and want to get to know me better? So this is self-evaluation. This is them evaluating their performance. And this is them taking a bird's eye view, the metacognitive skills of what they did previously. So how do I put those positive thoughts in someone else's head? How can I regulate myself? How can I motivate myself? And how can I learn from past experiences to make this person be intrinsically motivated to get to know me? And how can we get to know each other to go from that acquaintance to an actual relationship? And we think about boys and we think boys don't need that. Boys just want to play games or want to play sports and are too competitive, those sorts of things. Boys really, really need intimate, close relationships, especially in adolescence, outside of the home and outside of the adults they work with. It is super important for them to have boys they feel safe with. And it's not about what they're learning in social skills groups. It's about how are they able to look within, improve their character strengths, their executive function skills, so that they can be more intrinsically motivated and more regulated around these peers.
Exactly. And I think that's important. I don't know if stereotype is the right word, but sometimes I feel like we do stereotype boys to say they don't need things like that, but everyone needs it. And I think, again, us reflecting, on the conversations that we're having today and saying, oh, am I kind of portraying that on this way? Does he really need this? Yes. Just the answer is yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I think
Yeah.
being more aware as clinicians help us be more intentional. I think sometimes being intentional is the most important part. And when we get in the rut of just doing things every single day, we lose our intention and we just, are doing the grind. But if we self-reflect and we're being more intentional, then they're already going to get a lot more from us than if we're just chugging along, which I do all the time because that's life. But just take time to be more intentional.
So the biggest thing is that we have to start to recognize is that executive function skills are language-based. Executive, like speech and language pathologists, obviously we didn't learn this in graduate school, so there has to be some extra learning. There has to be, CEU courses, and we have to start to recognize what truly is executive functioning and what is the language connection. So an SLP can do it because it's language-based, of course. And instead of having these kids in these social skills groups, we should have executive functioning goals for these students. It's super important. And all of these executive functioning goals should be written as fading prompts towards independence to the point where this student is independently, not a goal for him performing within the social skills group. There should be a goal where he's, sitting with peers at lunch independently, interacting with peers independently via observation. You're measuring his motivation to build relationships. You're measuring his perspective taking skills, where he has the ability to recognize what kinds of thoughts he's putting in the other boys' heads. If he has this behavior, what thoughts is he putting in other kids' heads? If he makes this joke, what is he making these other kids say? So instead of throwing kids into these huge social skills groups and grouping them, we should be having individualized executive functioning goals for these students in terms of regulation, motivation, evaluation, visualizing, self-talk towards these students so that we can have actual long-term skill building and natural carryover instead of them being in groups from first grade until 12th.
I think you answered two questions. One that
There
someone
you go.
asked earlier this week, which was, what goals should we work on? And I think you just covered quite a few good examples. And then I see that there's a question down here. I'm going to skip the first half of the question. We'll talk about it in a second. But the second half said, can these skills become stronger on a long-term basis? And you just answered that, yes. But you have to be working on them explicitly. And you have to know that you're working on them.
So the prefrontal cortex of the brain, which is the home of executive functioning, it's really all over the brain, but the prefrontal cortex is the most malleable part of the brain, period. So we talk about neuroplasticity, and our brain, our career field would not exist without neuroplasticity. It is exactly what we work on with everything, the brain being plastic and malleable. The executive functioning system is the most malleable. We know from Carol Dweck's work with the growth mindset and all the work she did that that the growth mindset can be acquired throughout life, and people can learn to have the growth mindset. And the growth mindset is really a fancy word for executive functioning. If you have the growth mindset, you're mentally flexible, you're resilient, you're organized, you learn from past experiences, and you can regulate yourself in the face of shortcomings and failures. So that's really what it is. It's a fancy word for executive functioning. So yes, executive functioning is truly at its peak around 25, 26 years old. You know, it's right, the prefrontal cortex is right here behind the forehead, and the brain grows from back to front. So it's the last part of the brain to develop. So yes, you can gain executive functioning skills for a long-term basis. If schools only focused on executive functioning skills as much as they focused on grades and scores, then we'd really be onto something here, and we wouldn't be leading the world in college dropouts. So yes, executive functions can be worked on, they can be strengthened, but they have to be explicitly focused. We need to be talking to kids about talking to your brain, about the brain coach. We need to be focusing on visual imagery and mental movies and building the imagination and trying new things. So teaching kids explicitly to talk to themselves, to visualize to themselves, teaching them to stop and read the room, to use their situational awareness, teaching them about perspective taking skills, and also, you know, cause and effect thinking. You know, when you have huge difficulty visualizing and talking to yourself and you're stuck in the present moment, you know, Sarah Ward always says it as these kids are now versus not now. They're stuck in the moment. They're stuck right now. They can't learn from the past. They can't forecast themselves in the future. They're stuck in the present moment. They're now versus not now. If you're stuck in the present moment, you don't have cause and effect thinking. You don't have the ability to say, if I act this way, if I make this joke, if I act crazy and hyper, it's going to make other people think this. It's going to make other people not want to be my friends. It's going to make them think negative thoughts about me. So that's really the core of a lot of social learning challenges, is weak cause and effect thinking. And it's all executive functioning.
So good.
Too many notes. The director has too many notes to jot down. There you go.
Yes, and see,
Nice.
this will be saved and you'll be able to see it tonight. That's always how I feel when I do lives like this, and especially with you, where I'm like, I mean, I'm not obviously writing, but I always go back and look at these and I'm like, yeah, we're gonna detail all these things out, because you catch about two things and then two things and then two things, and then I have to use
it's a lot of information. I'm constantly catching myself just going on these monologues and just blurting out information, because I'm just so passionate about this. And it, like I said before, it bothers me when we as clinicians just accept things for how they are. You know, we were born into the system of IEPs, 504s, accommodations, and social skills, and it trickles down to the parents. And now these parents just think everyone needs to go to social skills. Social skills. But social skills are executive functioning skills, period. And if you're not focusing on executive functioning and you're only focusing on eye contact, initiation, circles of communication, ability to play a board game and lose and not freak out, that kind of stuff, that's not going to carry over. That kid's not going to make a friend at gym. That kid's not going to make a friend in the cafeteria, because he's not intrinsically motivated to make friends, and he does not know how to socially relate to peers. So that's really the issue there, is executive functioning. And you're not going to do that unless you can visualize yourself being successful in the future, and unless you can coach yourself through those social situations.
Exactly. And speaking of parents, which you just brought up, I had a question about this prior to the live, and someone just asked it again. Tips for parents to help build executive function skills. And I think we'll talk about this again here, but you also gave a very good description and tip on our last live.
Yep. So the biggest thing that parents have to do is make sure that your child has varied experiences. That is the most important thing for you to do as a parent. So kids with executive functioning challenges are always going to want to stay in their comfort zone. And 9 times out of 10, 9.9 times out of 10, their comfort zone is going to be their phone, it's going to be the video games, and it's going to be the computer, it's going to be screens. It's going to be instant gratification. To strengthen executive functioning skills, this kid needs to have varied experiences. Sign them up for clubs, sign them up for sports, sign them up for different groups. You have to get them out there meeting new people and trying new things. If they stick to their comfort zone of video games and screens and computers and instant gratification and doing things that, the 1 or 2 things every day that makes them comfortable, you have to have structure within the day, and you can't just have open access to screens. So it's so super important for parents to make sure that their children have varied experiences on a daily basis, and they're not able to just say, no, I don't want to do that. Like, oh, don't sign me up for soccer. I don't like sports. Don't sign me up for robotics. I don't like the people in there. You can't just accept no for an answer. You have to teach the kid to get in there, be resilient, be flexible, give other people second chances, try new things, and be able to deal with that learning curve. These kids today are growing up in this instant gratification world. And what is that doing to them? It's making them be wholeheartedly against anything with a learning curve. These kids want to pick up something and be good at it the second they try it. So they don't like playing a sport where they suck at it the first few times. They don't want to learn new material that's really, really hard the first time. They want to be good at it the first time they try. And it's super important for you as a parent to change that thinking. So that's that fixed mindset where I'm good at this, I'm bad at this. I'm a science guy, I'm not a math guy. I can read, but I can't write. And it's these kids with this black and white thinking, we have to get them to try various things before they say if they like it or they don't like it. You have to make sure they try it, they have experiences, they dip their toes in it, they're meeting new people, they're having new experiences, and they're not just stuck in that tiny, tiny comfort zone.
Absolutely. And even the principles of learning, right? We learn from our environment, we learn from our experiences. And if we're limited to a handful of experiences that we do day in, day out, our learning potential essentially is reduced.
Yep.
And so just in principles of learning anything, anytime you get more opportunities, it's going to give you more opportunities to learn. And as therapists and teachers, of course, we want people to have as many opportunities to learn or respond as possible. So
we have another great question here is an advocate was so focused on OT for self-regulation for our 6th grader. So this is another huge thing. So social skills, oh, this person's introverted, hanging out by themselves. Let's throw them into a social skills group. Oh, this person has difficulty with self-regulation. It must be sensory-based. It must be motor-based. Let's throw them into a OT so we can get OT services for self-regulation. Yes, OT services can be very beneficial to work on self-regulation and to try new soothing strategies and different things to help. But it's not going to target the core internal problem of self-regulation, which is that weakness and that disconnect between nonverbal and verbal working memory. That is so important. It is cognitive skills. It is not all sensory based. You have to remember that. Executive functioning are cognitive skills. It is cognitive processing. It is not all external sensory things that we see. We're so focused on what we see. Okay, so here's a kid who can't sit still. Here's a kid who gets angry easily. He must have sensory processing. Let's throw him in. Let's throw him into occupational therapy. Yes, occupational therapy can be very beneficial. It really all depends on the unique individual of the 6th grader, who I obviously don't know. But when it comes to executive functioning, it is an internal disorder that is based in language. And it is super, super important that we remember we have to build internal skills if we want long-term skill acquisition.
Exactly. It's the why.
Yep.
Every time we see something, we should always, always, always ask ourselves why, because they're not just doing that because they're just doing that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a why. And it could be sensory, but honestly, for me, at least 8 out of 10 times, it is executive functioning, if not more.
So this person's saying, so anger is an issue. So anger is an issue with this child. So if anger is the issue, that's true self-regulation. And I don't, is it sensory based? I don't know. But if it's just anger, then that's showing a disconnect between cause and effect thinking and difficulty of learning from past experiences and being able to use their future thinking and see that whatever's bothering them in the present moment is temporary. So that sounds true executive functioning and language based. And this is the common mistake that schools make. Anger issues, self-regulation, throw them in OT. Social skills, throw them in the biggest group we have.
Or bring the behavior specialist in
or
and
bring
let's
the
reinforce.
Oh my God. That's
We're not going to go down that
thing.
road, but in case
Exactly.
you're school based, at my school, that's frequently the answer. Behavior.
I have worked with high schoolers that have been sent to the ABA professional, the behavior professional, high schoolers that have had behavior charts. High schoolers. And it is absolutely ridiculous. Behavior charts are not going to teach your kid to change their behavior, and they are not going to teach your kid to be intrinsically motivated to interact well with peers, to eliminate the behaviors, and they're not going to have behavior charts when they're living independently. So if we're not working on something when the child is school aged that is going to help them be more independent post-school, then why are we even working on it? Then that shows that we're just doing our best to push this kid through to the next school year so we can wash our hands clean of it so he has a new teacher and a new SLP or a new therapist. That's what we have to start thinking about. Why are we working on this skill now in 5th, 6th, 7th grade just so he can make it to high school and hope that it gets better then with experience? Kindergarten age even more. Kindergarten age is the most crucial time. That's really when kids soak in information. Token charts for kindergarten, it can work, but you have to have a plan for when it fades out. Token charts are not applicable. Eventually, whoever that behavior therapist is not going to be with that kid forever. Eventually, he's going to have a new behavior therapist or a new teacher that's going to do things differently, and token charts are not going to work. Token charts do not teach a kid internal skills and internal motivation. So we have got to change. Like behaviors, give them a behavior chart. Self-regulation, set them to OT. Social skills, put them in the biggest group we have. We have got to stop. We have to start analyzing what is best for these kids and what's going to help them with long-term skill acquisition. And these copy and pasted goals, these copy and pasted accommodations, these 50-page IEPs with 30 different goals on it, it's ridiculous. It's all executive functioning. It's all self-regulation. It's all internal language. And it's all internal skills. We can't keep teaching the external.
Exactly. It's like, is a token chart bad inherently? No. But if we're going for what do we want to fix, a token chart and a behavioral type intervention isn't going to fix the executive function cognitive weakness that we're seeing. So can you use a token chart? Are they evil? No, but just be intentional again. You have to remind yourself,
yes.
What am I working on? What am I working on?
Yes.
You can motivate them because everyone needs motivation. And if that's a token chart for that time in their life, cool. But don't expect the token chart and that reinforcement to fix their executive function deficit.
I am very glad this person, the director, attended this live tonight, because now you can start to analyze what's been happening. Like think about it. If half your school is on token charts, that speaks to a larger issue. Something is happening within that area, within that environment, that's causing kids to be dysregulated. And if they're on token charts, what needs to be differently to make sure that they will be prepared for what's to come in future educational environments? So we have to start analyzing what we're doing. And another person earlier asked, so a child with weak executive functioning would have a diagnosis. So typically, weak executive functioning is ADHD. So ADHD is now referred to as EFDD, or executive functioning developmental delay. So ADHD is really an old, outdated term. Why? Because ADHD is not an attention deficit. It's actually people that have an abundance of attention, too much attention. It's not about hyperactivity. It's not about inattentiveness. It's about regulation and motivation. So it's a really outdated term. But executive functioning is not just ADHD. I specialize in ADHD, yes, but people with executive functioning challenge, people with autism have executive functioning challenges. You can have executive functioning challenges without ADHD. But typically what you want to do is determine what is this child's executive age, where are they at developmentally and maturation-wise in comparison to their actual age. So, so if you have a 15-year-old, maybe it's more like a 12-year-old. Or if you have an 18-year-old, maybe it's more like a 15-year-old. So you really want to see where they're at in terms of their independent skills, in terms of how many different things are they doing every day, how many different friendships they have, are they able to persevere through non-preferred tasks, can they persevere through boredom, are they mentally flexible, how much are you as an adult prompting them, what are they doing independently, what are they prompt dependent on. This is how we determine executive age. And if we determine there's an executive functioning developmental delay, yes, that's a diagnosis, and that requires one-on-one services and possibly medication.
Boom. That was a
There you
great
go.
answer to that question. I want to add one thing. I'm curious to know what you think. Say your school is on token charts and they're not about to change token charts. Think about what you know now, though, about executive function and how you could do some things explicitly while you're using your token charts. Because if they're doing a behavior and then you give them a token, they're often not aware that anything happened. And that's where the executive function and learning comes in. They need to know, this is why I got it. And how am I going to get one of those next time? That's the executive function piece that they're missing, that you just giving them a token every time they do it and they're not aware. That's not going to fix anything. But I do this with my classroom teachers all the time. I'm like, they need to know why they're getting it and be constantly thinking, and you can map that language on for them as a teacher, as a classroom teacher, as a parent, as whatever. What do we want to do to get this next time? And then, if someone's distracted, they have to have that inner voice. I want the token that's loud, but I need to be working right now. And they're using that inner voice. And I know when I use my inner voice, I get what I want.
Exactly.
So in that way,
Yep.
you can still use your token charts, but you're working at the root issue, not, you know what I mean?
So you have to, so what these token charts are doing is it's basically teaching kids, it's reinforcing black and white thinking. This behavior was good, this behavior was bad. This behavior got me a token, this behavior took away a token or didn't earn a token. That's all it was. It's not teaching perspective taking skills. It's not teaching, okay, I did this, it made this person think this. I did that, it made this person think that. So we have got to use language. So token charts is not language based. It's just a simple reward system. It's kind of it's like old classic B.F. Skinner conditioning. It's like it's a little ridiculous to be doing that to human beings. So you have to think about, we have to be using our language. We have to say, when you did this, you made me think this. When you did this, you made me feel this way. You can use purposeful, positive praise, and you can explain the effects of their behaviors. And you can use your nonverbal, you can look excited, you can look sad, you can talk to them, you can have the experiences, and let them learn from their peers, let them learn from you. They're not going to take in, so we're always talking about internal versus external. Behavior charts are external, but they're not going to change the internal. And we need to focus on the internal skills. You're not going to get rid of behaviors without self-regulation, without self-motivation to improve. Kids stop behaviors when they are motivated to stop the behaviors because they see the benefit of stopping the behaviors. They're not going to get that from a behavior chart. So you have to bring it back to language. You have to bring it back to executive functioning. If a kid is having a behavior problem, teach them to visualize themselves getting through the behavior or getting through the stressful situation. Teach them coping skills to coach themselves, use their brain coach, talk to themselves, teach them to visualize to themselves. to create a mental movie of something that calms them down, to talk to their brain, to talk back to the negativity, to talk back to the anxiety. Teach them strategies and skills and practice these strategies in high repetition so they become innate, so they become natural and organic to these students. Behavior charts are just behavior charts. You're not teaching any strategies. It's just an external chart. So yes, that can work in the short term, but it's not going to be about long-term skill acquisition. And we're putting these kids at a disservice when we throw reward charts at them and we're not teaching them strategies in high repetition.
Totally. I have an example that I just think is so cute that I was thinking about that. I think it's cute because I know the kid, but it's a first grader, and the frequent concern that I was always given is during like reading time, they're reading a book and this kid is up every 2 seconds or blurting out, or and we can go through all the reasons why that is likely the case, all the reasons that you just outlined for every other example. And we've been working on those things, and oh my goodness, they threw away she had a token chart. Sorry. She had a token chart, and they were like, she just disregarded it. She just stopped even looking at it anymore because she was so much more engaged with her surroundings and what was going on that she could inhibit all those things that she couldn't before because she was regulating. This is the same girl I told you that walked in line and wanted to go to the bathroom really bad. And she said, my brain told me I'm not going to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
So,
nice.
But it's amazing. And sometimes I wish I could go into that classroom and pull out the thought bubbles in those little first graders' mind, because I can tell you while those kids are reading a book, they're either thinking that's a really annoying noise, but I got to listen, or, their brain is saying, this is a really interesting book. I wonder what happens next. Those same questions that you're doing literacy based likely aren't happening in your kids that don't have that internal language to self-regulate.
That's exactly what it is. So the main problem was the student was calling out at inappropriate times.
Calling out at inappropriate times, or would just like stand up and walk around the room every couple minutes.
So there you go. So that's reading the room. So that student clearly was not sitting back, looking around the room and watching what everybody else was doing. They were stuck in the now, and they were stuck in the present moment, and they were doing what they would do for instant gratification. So they were coming up with different ideas, and they were just blurting it out, or if they felt like moving, they would get up and move. But teaching them to sit back, watch what everybody else is doing, scan the arena, use their reading the room skills, perspective taking skills, to have that internal dialogue. That student probably has very, very minimal internal dialogue because they're not thinking about what is happening within the environment. They're not coaching themselves. They're just going second by second, minute by minute, for instant gratification. What feels the best for them to do minute by minute, instead of regulating in the moment, reading the room, and appropriating what their body looks like and what their actions look like compared to everybody else. So that's a great example of a student with delayed executive functioning. And what can we do to help this student build these independent skills? A reward chart, sure, but it's not going to be long term. So we really want these students to be intrinsically motivated to speed up their executive age to their true age, so that they're behaving at an age appropriate level.
Exactly. And mind you, this is a 6-year-old, and she's learning these things. So these are things kids learn very early, and it's important that we intervene early, because think about what happens when we grab them in middle school because they're really floundering. We just lost that much time. So remember that example, that was a 6-year-old.
There you go. Yeah. A 6-year-old. Yep. And you can work on executive functioning as little as preschool, but in obviously in age appropriate ways.
Exactly.
You want to start them to be aware of their internal language, and teach them to talk to their brains, and teach them to create mental movies and make it fun and play-based, of course, those sorts of things. But, you always want to focus on what's appropriate for this age. What should they be doing independently? What should they be dependent on adults for? You always want to just kind of have a list of, okay, what am I doing for my son or daughter, and what are they independent at? That's the most important thing. And of course, kindergartens, preschool kids are not very independent in anything, but they should be able to independently play with peers, and remain regulated most of the time. It's pretty normal for a preschooler to get upset every now and then. So I may have missed the memo. What follow-up book recommendations? So right now we're reading How Children Succeed in our chapter chats on Mondays at 8 p.m. I highly recommend that. I love the work of Dr. Russell Barkley. You can find him on YouTube. He has incredible work. Follow my friend Ryan Wexelblatt, the ADHD dude. You can really type this information in now in terms of ADHD, executive functioning. Watch Sarah Ward's videos. A lot of her stuff is on ADHD, a fellow SLP doing executive functioning. She is incredible. Ryan Wexelblatt, Dr. Russell Barkley, Callie posts some incredible things. So you guys do incredible work. It's really, there's a lot of really, really great stuff out there. So definitely, all you got to do is type it into Google and kind of, see the source for EF and autism. I don't really do a lot of work with executive functioning and autism. Autism is really more, global challenges. I believe, Michelle Garcia Winner has a lot of great work for executive functioning and autism. I would use her social thinking curriculum for executive functioning and autism. I would go about that. Michelle Garcia Winner at Social Thinking. I think that's a great place to start. But the more you start thinking internal executive functioning instead of always focusing on what we see with our eyes and external, then you're going to be on the right track. And remember, executive functioning is language. Language is executive functioning. It all goes together. And if we focus on building these executive function skills, we can really, really focus on these long-term skill acquisition and stop having these issues post-IEP.
Totally. And there's probably a good chance that a lot of the general principles we've talked about today still apply to our autistic population who do have executive function deficits. I just don't have specific resources for people who have done work with people who have both diagnoses.
Yeah, exactly. So with autism comes executive functioning challenges. They're together. But with autism, it's really just so much of that unique individual. That it truly is that spectrum between low functioning and high functioning. So it really depends on the unique individual. So with autism especially, you never take a one-size-fits-all approach, ever. So that's why I like Michelle Garcia Winner's work, because she does a great job of helping you to find the appropriate treatment for that unique individual with autism.
Awesome. Do we hit all the questions? I think we hit all the questions.
I think so. We had a lot of good questions tonight. So every single person who came and joined and spent your Tuesday night with us, that's we really appreciate that. And there was a lot of hearts flying around at the bottom there. I saw that I got distracted by. So all these questions. Every time I do a live with you, the audience is always great.
I know. That's what makes the lives. So I always appreciate when the audience interacts, because that means it's not just you and I talking, but we're getting them exactly what they need. So
exactly.
That makes me happy.
And thank you for saying it was helpful. We appreciate that. Anytime that you guys can listen to these lives and it can change the way you approach your students and start to think about the internal, then we're doing our job, and this was all worth it.
Exactly. And as a closing, if you have any follow-up questions or thoughts or things that you want for like a round 3, we like to talk. So
yeah. Thank you guys so much.
I'm sure DM either of us some questions or thoughts, and I'm sure we could blab about it for another hour, another day.
Oh yeah. I'm sure we'll do our 3rd live sometime soon. Definitely love following you and chatting with you on Instagram. Your page is awesome. Thank you for all the great comments there. So anything that we can do, any questions you guys have, if there's a specific topic you guys want us to talk about in our next one, we can make this a pretty. When's the next live? Already asking for the next one.
Give us our topic and we'll schedule it.
Yeah, we'll do it. Hey, we got nothing better to do. I love sitting in my basement talking to my phone.
And while you wait for the next live, I'm putting in a plug for your Monday nights.
Thank you.
Because what do you call them? Your book.
The chapter.
Like a book group.
Chapter Chat Book Club. So myself and the amazing Carrie Ebert. So Carrie Ebert Seminars on Instagram. She is just, she's like my hero in terms of SLPs. The stuff that she puts out there, she might be the number one must follow in the history of speech and language pathology Instagram. Her post on a daily basis. Chapter chat with Carrie has been great. Thank you so much. Hi, Julie. How are you? Good to see you. Working with her and teaming up with her on these chapter chats. So we're the very first must-watch Monday nights. Thank you. So everyone, please go follow Carrie. She is just one of the most incredible people in the world. So we're starting with this book, purposefully, How Children Succeed, because it analyzes the current school system, which runs on something called the cognitive hypothesis, which we touched on tonight. And the cognitive hypothesis is basically our obsession with grades, numbers, standard scores, standard deviations, SATs, ACTs, and testing, and just really pushing academics hard and making sure kids memorize content. And there's no more relationship building. There's no more experiences for these kids. There's never any talk about executive functioning. There's never relationship building. There's very little project-based learning, hands-on learning at school. It's all the lecture listen model. So we're really analyzing what's wrong with the education in this country, and then really what we can do to fix it. And the next book we're reading, I have it here, is called Finnish Lessons 2.0, and it's all about the educational system in Finland, how it was very broken like ours, and what they did to fix it. So it says, what can the world learn from educational change in Finland? So this one's going to be an incredible book, and it's going to have real action points that all of the listeners can take back to their school to improve the culture of their school.
So Monday nights, everyone, now you have the title, so get ready.
Yeah, it's exciting. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I saw you in it last night. I saw your name pop up. So that was really cool. I gave you a shout out. I don't know if you were still there. But it's great. So Monday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, join me and the amazing Carrie. It's a lot of fun. And we do one chapter at a time. It's an online book club, very interactive with the community, just like our lives. So definitely join us. And you can find all the recordings on Carrie's Instagram, and we're also on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So you can find us, just type in education chapter chat and on Spotify or Apple, and you can listen to all the episodes.
Perfect. I wanted to make sure before we got off today that I put in a plug for it because it is so.
Thank you. And I want to put a plug to your Instagram. Your Instagram is one of the best. I love going through there and voting for all my favorite snacks and all the different quizzes, all the quizzes you put up. You have the most adorable dog in the entire world.
Aww.
And you I think you went to like a water park the other day, but you got rained out or something. All the things, like the way that you document your life as a speech therapist, and you have a lot of you post a lot of really good motivational things. And like the other day you had like, if you're considering it, just do it kind of thing. That was like, I saw that and I was like, you know what? I needed that today. That was really, really cool. So you are definitely a must follow.
Well, thank you. Right back at you.
Great work.
All right. Well, until next time, we'll be listening for our DMs. I hope you fill in with topics, because then we'll schedule our next live.
Send lots of questions. I love answering your guys' messages. And we'll do our third episode sometime soon.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Bye.